Hi, yes, this is Roger Kennis in regards to the 2017 Route 91 Las Vegas shooting. I want to give an update as to why these records are so important that should not be permanently wiped, jurisdiction stripped from the courts, and the ability of the victims and others to be able to sue MGM or the lawyers afterward is because uh, the insurance was divided up, and MGM didn't just use Zurich; they also used policies that fell under Live Nation, and so certain determinations were made and statements made within those claims that it divided up liability. So MGM might say, "Well, we weren't negligent. We weren't. This wasn't foreseeable. You know, your insurance needs to pay, or this insurance needs to pay," and they divvied it up. Well, those records, if they get destroyed, would show what their claims were made to the insurance carriers. We already know, based on my court filings, that MGM had sued Zurich in a related matter to this to try and get more money to cover lawyers' fees. And they used the claim unforeseeability to gain coverage. Negligence can still be covered by insurance, but if it's a foreseeable act, it doesn't get covered. And when they're turning around and divvying it up between the insurance, so no one insurance carrier takes all the hit, then you're divvying up liability, and that's what was done in this instance because there was a tower of 24 insurance carriers ultimately, but at the same time, interests align that you know the victims are being deceived. They're not being told the full truth as to what happened that day, the timeline. And if my case shows that it was foreseeable and that they were negligent, wiping those records would prevent anybody from being able to sue them later. Um, MGM, and I've said from day one, I had this critical video of 16 additional minutes that's never been properly investigated by authorities. But I did submit it to the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force that submitted it to the Tactical Fusion Center, according to what I was told by the FBI agent that I dealt with here locally. So that record did go somewhere in law enforcement, but was supposedly sent to the Tactical Fusion Center in Nevada. And then for some reason, it disappeared. It never made it into the official records. So that's another thing to consider when you're talking obstruction of justice, tampering with records. I accused MGM of tampering with records. My deposition, my appeal is for fraud upon the court with no time limit, and omitting these facts from the court, omitting the partnership. If MGM had direct liability and is acting as one, and let's talk about this too. MGM walks in the court and uses the workman's comp rule when one of their employees sues them and says, we have an exclusive remedy rule where this needs to be handled because we're one employer. All their employees' subsidiaries fall under them, the parent corporation, to force them into workers' comp because it saves them money, essentially. And yet in this case, we know that Campos and other employees were injured or harmed in this incident, and they were all wrapped up under workman's comp. But yet walked into court knowingly for the last 7 years and tried to divide up properties and hide behind Mandalay Bay when they signed the festival permit directly. And that partnership that they omitted and concealed, they are actively deceiving the court, candor to the court, to walk in and openly, with knowledge, know that they had a partnership that extended the festival grounds to the from Mandalay Bay to the festival, and actively deceived the court and tried to hide behind their subsidiaries, knowing that they're acting as one company. Because when we sued, they divide up the properties. We're all separate entities. But for their workers, they turn around and argue, we're one entity. You can't have it both ways, and that's the same thing that's going on throughout this case. MGM is playing the same shell game between the different court cases. They're all related, but because mine's separate, they're trying to play the shell game in between the different court systems and jurisdiction and who can do what to get out of it. This should be stopped immediately, and the lawyers should know better. They didn't properly investigate. They could have put together a better case. They could have interviewed me. They could have at least inquired. I mean, Egglet, at the time, through my lawyer, had an a consent to associate as counsel, right? So he's representing all of us. And I'm saying it's fraud. My interests go against your interests because he doesn't want to go after them for that. He wants to take the easy route. Our interests didn't align and our goals didn't align. I wanted you guys to get the truth, and they wanted to hide the truth, and they basically helped them. And ultimately, I believe the whole goal was, and why you've seen the expansion of sport teams, is they were trying to diversify the economy because they knew they would take a freaking hit if this all came out. So they've been diversifying the economy with Raiders, with athletics, sports teams, all this different stuff that Hollywood trying to move everybody in for that. They're trying to diversify the economy, but they've obstructed justice and hindered justice and the truth from being told, and they've allowed MGM to get away with it, which is against their own clients' interests, and it's a breach of their fiduciary duties. So they all have mutually aligned interests to make it go away. But this needs to be stopped. The court knows what's going on, but they're playing these jurisdictional issues and playing between the courts to try and prevent me. And the fact of the matter is, they could turn around and use the lower court case to walk into my case and say, hey, this needs to be dismissed because it's moot, whatever. I have a way to beat that as well, but that's the ultimate goal, is to try and dismiss my case later on once they get this ruling, just like the good faith ruling. Judge Bell determined it, but yet she was actively involved in basically creating a court order for my records and then didn't order them, even though MGM sat on those records and let her rule, knowing that they had a copy of those records, and even gave her my DD-214. That was the only record she tried to order, was twice, after giving me explicit instructions she would obtain the full records, military and medical, and then didn't even order the medical portion at all, and denied and said the record is empty. Well, it's not empty because MGM has started the DD-214 under seal. So you had good reason to believe, or she had good reason to believe, that I am in fact a veteran. They know that I'm disabled, and instead they tried to get rid of the supporting records. Talk about low down and evil. They've been put on notice not to destroy those records. The base Davis defense basically will be a factor later on, because when they walk in and knowingly try to deceive the court and omit information from the court, they will be violating the law one way or the other. So they're on notice. I'm trying to do everything I can to help all of the other claimants, and that's the problem. The big money is in the fact that 4,400 people plus were cheated. And there are people that didn't even sue because they felt bad, but were deceived as to the true timeline of events and the public narrative, and MGM has contained it through suppression algorithms, through their advertising. It's hard to prove that the intent was that they were intentionally trying to suppress, and that it wasn't a normal course of business of protecting their brand, but it serves a dual purpose. And I believe Congress needs to take a look at this, and the FTC, because and the FBI, because essentially they're suppressing. They're basically putting a containment wall around an incident, and that incident could be going on in other places, same incident, and nobody knows because they're containing the area. So that's the lowdown. I hope people step up and do the right thing here and put a stop to this. Thank you.